I know what you're thinking, but hear me out. Today's review, yes, I've been I've been wanting to cover this for a good several months. I thought that it'll be kind of integral in the November slash Thanksgiving month of sets of movie reviews I wanted to do this month, and he gave me an excuse to review one, still kind of iconic, one of the iconic Disney Renaissance films, uh, to this day, Disney's Pocahontas. Yes, based off of the historical figure in Native American culture in the 1600s. And I will go over the actual historical facts, what I managed to piece together right after I go through the story itself. Before we get into all that, please leave a like, hit the notification bell, follow me in the links in the descriptions, and follow me on my Twitch as I've been playing some God of War Ragnarok, for like almost nonstop, live on Twitch, twitch.tv/talkative Carl. Yeah. Disney's Pocahontas, directed by Mike Gabriel, who also did like The Rescuers from Down Under. Another film I think I should, do a review on, because I haven't seen that since I was a child. And I remember loving it. But it's been so long, I cannot remember, the plot. So it'd be nice to revisit that. This movie stars Irene, the Native American actress Irene Bedard, voicing Pocahontas. Glenn, Judy Kunn provides the singing parts of Pocahontas. Mel Gibson, another problematic situation, but we didn't know that at the time. This movie came out in 1995, so yeah, this is before his whole thing. Mel Gibson voices John Smith and provides the some of the singing, while Jess Harno provides at least 20% of John Smith's singing. David Ogden steers as Governor Ratcliffe. John Casier as Miko. Russell Means as Chief Powhatan. Jim Cummings provides the singing voice for the chief. Christian Bale, pretty sure is pretty young and early in his acting career, voices Thomas, a friend to John Smith. Billy Connolly voices both Ben and Joe Baker. The other two friends of John Smith. Linda Hunt as Grandmother Willow. Okay. The movie begins in England, and all the English, including John Smith and Radcliffe, are ready to set sail to the New World. And even Radcliffe kind of points out when they land in what's to be known as Virginia, and points out, because he's going there for gold, in the region, because it's not too long after was, I'm pretty sure, established at this point, because I did not know about this bit of history when I was a kid. There's a lot of stuff that's been whitewashed through a lot of, you know, uh, scholastics in the American educational system, which is a problematic stuff on its own. But and then I know about like the Mayans and with the situation with what's that uh, conquistador's name, uh, Hernan Cortez. It's not too long after the whole situation with Hernan Cortez going to the uh, Mayan region over in uh, Southern America and New Mexico, uh, uh, pillaging, murdering a lot of native people there. But it just, kind of hinted at. It wasn't given like, because it's a children's movie. It didn't give like any of the gory details, but I guess if you're like, an adult at that back in 1995, what it was probably insinuating. Uh, uh, John Smith portrayed as this kind of dashing, swashbuckler type of guy, and one of the good dudes, and it's like guy, like kind of like the Aladdin-esque kind of charming, heroic scoundrel kind of thing. He wasn't like a scoundrel. He probably like it was like a man of arms with fight with honor and all the other stuff. Uh, uh, Contrast to that to what we see from Pocahontas's life, living with her people. And in case you're wondering, the tribe, let me get this right, the Powhatan tribe from the Werowocomo, Sunakamaka. I might be butchering that, but that is the particular region in Virginia where the Powhatan was settled, at least one of the tribes of the Powhatan people. And Pocahontas is actually a nickname, in case some people do not know. Her real name was, let me get this right, is Matoka. Pocahontas roughly translates to little wanton or playful one or little brat or the naughty one, and which kind of plays into the free spiritedness that is portrayed in Pocahontas in the animated film. She talks to her grandmother Willow, which, of anything you remember from Pocahontas is the character, but like grandmother Willow, that talking tree, and it's like they always stuck with me. Even though she's supposed to be like the words of probably like, I don't know if it's just like a her grandmother that passed on and kind of spirit merged with this willow tree. Uh, you're left to assume that, but oh hey Derpy, Pocahontas was the last good Disney musical of that era. Forget Frozen. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me that Derpy. This kind of coincides with, as problematic. I really don't like using that word. I think it's overblown at this point, like the word woke. But as problematic as this movie is, it did kind of inspire a lot of films that came later. Like, for prime example, the James Cameron Avatar films. Even though, like, James Cameron stated in interviews that he thought of this film, Avatar, or at least start coming up with the idea for Avatar long before Pocahontas. It's just they made the movie already, uh, you know, way before he had like the movie kind of like laid out, because I guess these Avatar movies take such a long time. But you also got Fern Gully, which heavily inspired by Pocahontas. Pocahontas also inspired like a lot of female lead characters that we know from down the line, like Elsa and Moana, as far as like and Mulan that came a little bit later. So there's I tried to make sure like I try to get like some good, even if like whether the movie's problematic or just bad, like something like Morbius. I still kind of like Morbius. There's still some stuff that I actually dug out of the movie, despite acknowledgeable issues with the film. Even like Batman and Robin film, that's like that I reviewed. As corny as that movie was, and almost tanked the reputation of Batman as a whole in the movie box office. Side note, R.I.P. Kevin Conroy. You will be greatly missed. But yeah, I mean, like Pocahontas did pave a way for a lot of it was integral in a lot of things that came later that we would have been severely missed out. So I cannot totally badmouth Pocahontas, but it's just the historical inaccuracies that we've been fed this buttload of lies since the 90s. And part wasn't until like I'm pretty sure a lot of the Native American people knew the real story, but for the rest of us, some people behind the scenes of this movie knew the issues, or at least knew what the real story is, or at least what they gleaned with whatever data they had at that time, and tried to make a pseudo Romeo and Juliet thing here. So the purpose wasn't to be like a documentary, but you did kind of, fed a bunch of lies to impress with children, especially of my generation, growing up watching Aladdin and Mulan and Pocahontas and Lion King and stuff like that. And so for a good period of time, you didn't expect a lot of kids to actually, of that time, to actually go to a library. Yes, we actually had to go to a library to find out and do some research on certain people. We didn't have Google at that time. But you didn't expect the kids to go out their way to find like the real history of Pocahontas. It wasn't until by the time most of us started going to like high school, for the most part, or even college in some aspects, where we finally like learn what the real story of Pocahontas, and it's mired in tragedy. But like I said, I'll get to it at the end of this. She gets this. She tells Grandmother Willow about this dream she had about this spinning arrow, and what does it mean. That's when like and then she's, I mean, historically, at this point in time, Pocahontas should be 10 or 11 years old. But in the animated film, she's depicted to be like a young adult. Big inaccuracy. But they have to make it fit into the narrative. So, and John Smith's supposed to be like 28 years old at this point in time. She's weary, or at least she's concerned about being married off to this other Powhatan man, what's his name, Kokum. It kind of sounds like a noise you see in like a comic book where lightning strikes or something, like Kokum. But the dude is like, oh, he's so serious, father, because she she feels that she might be constrained and not to be able to do what she always going to do. Like, is it a knock here? Because I don't think that's probably would have been like a thing in actual history. But in context of this film, it's like, you know what your tribes, you know, traditions and religion uh, is on. And not to say that in certain cultures there's certain people that broke away from uh, particular traditions that doesn't fit them, and kind of like, you know, very forward thinking of, you know, of them for that particular era. Not to say that never happened before, but it's like you knew it was coming. Well, not particularly this guy, but you knew that at some point, you being a daughter of a chief, you were probably gonna be married off to better, because like the arranged marriages is usually a mutual beneficial thing between two families. Uh, you know, in some aspects is depicted as very misogynistic and very you know, toxic, you know, masculinity and patriarchy and stuff like that. In general, is meant to be like a mutual beneficial thing. One doesn't benefit over the other. There's, you know, it's kind of like an agreement, and sometimes it doesn't play well to the modern standards, but that was a thing in certain historical cultures. Uh, Now I want to say that the music in here is good, other than like just around the river bend. I think that's what the song is called. I don't remember any of the other songs. The songs that, you know, the English sing extremely like racist. You know, I watched this on Disney Plus because I haven't watched it since I was a kid. That's how long it's been. I haven't re-watched this in such a long time, and it's just, I imagine, just like, you know, the animated Peter Pan with the depiction of the Native Americans and that. It's just like, for the most part, you guys gotta brace yourselves with at least like a third, if not half, of the '90s, early 2000s Disney animated films, because, you know, they're saying certain things which I guess historically they would have you know, said it, but just brace yourselves. You know, depicting, you know, calling the Native Americans Indians and savages and stuff like that, which is extremely ironic, uh, uh, given the fact that these colonizers, you know, called anybody that's different from them savages in one way, shape, or form, but they caused the most atrocities and butcheries, more so than any other culture in their respects. Not to say like, you know, like Africans or Native Americans or certain Eastern people haven't had their fuck shit, but the white man, you know, like to gloss over the bullshit that they attributed to the most. They kind of like keep topping themselves as centuries went on, way right into like damn near into almost into like late 70s into the 80s, when things started to make a cultural shift where it's like, you know, some semblance of some kind of unity and melting pot. Uh, uh, but you know, the English land expecting to find gold. Uh, Radcliffe, you know, just like one of those snooty, pompous kind of. He's very low tier as far as like a Disney villain. He's not on the same level as like Jafar or Ursula, or even, definitely not Hades, or even like the bad guy in Tarzan. This guy is like very low tier. It's like, do y'all even remember Radcliffe? To be honest with you, no, nobody does. It's the same thing with like Lady and Tramp or the Aristocats. It's like, do y'all really remember the villains in these films? Because until y'all rewatch it, you like, oh yeah, I remember that. It's like it doesn't click with you. They never made like a huge like impact so far as like a villain is concerned. Um, John Smith goes out to explore. He bumps into Pocahontas. Completely. They both of them are completely like. Of course, Pocahontas spots him first because he knows the land and knows how to hide and everything like that. And she doesn't reveal herself until she's ready. And like they're both like immediately smitten with each other. And of course, it's heavily debated whether or not historically these two might have like a romantic interest or curiosity in each other, but it wasn't really explored like that historically. But given the historical facts laid bare about the real John Smith, I highly doubt he was any kind of interested, romantically at the very least, with the real life Pocahontas. Uh, so they, teach each other like their methods of greetings. Like he taught her how a handshake works, while she taught him how the Powhatan people say hi and goodbye. And I gotta admit, it's like the the people behind this, which is they actually had like some Native American people involved here, which is you know more than I'm pretty sure they are perfectly were aware about the probably inaccuracies depicted in here, but I doubt there were anybody in the writers' room as far as like how to correctly depict this. Uh, as far as like if I give it a percentage, I think they may be like at the very most 10 to 50% accurate, and I'm being extremely generous here because I just don't 100% know, but uh, uh, I'm just that's why like if they now I'm usually I'm opposed for Disney remakes because I think we've been like bogged down with a lot of shitty Disney remakes. Aside from maybe the two or three that were actually pretty damn good. I wouldn't begrudge them to actually remake Pocahontas, but this time a little bit more accurately. And the problem with that, while I'm saying it, is that historically it gets kind of rough. The real life Pocahontas was kidnapped, raped. One of the guys impregnated her, and the sequel to this film kind of highlights a little bit her time in England, which isn't all like sunshine and rainbows. I want to say that how it was in the film, but it was a whole lot worse. She had to be baptized to be made Christians in order to go through with actual marriage, and she dressed up in English clothing. You can look it up and you can see like pictures of her in the English clothing, and when she was setting sail to go back to the America to see her people again, she died of an illness. Some say foul play, but the scumbag who got her pregnant didn't, I guess ultimately didn't acknowledge the kid is his kid and left the kid with some random dude. It wasn't for the guy's brother who, laid out like that. That was a pretty scummy thing to do. The kid has nobody. So the tobacco plantation that at least I guess one of his he left it to the son so that way he can have something, and it's unknown whether or not the kid I think the kid was named Thomas because they re they change they forced Pocahontas to change her name to Rebecca in real life just to give her a proper name, and the kid was named Thomas, and so uh, Thomas tried to reach out to his mother's people, whether or not they accepted him or even like give him a time of day, we don't know. But like I said, it's mired in tragedy. But uh, I wouldn't say you need to like lay so heavily into that, but you can at the very least insinuate or get across of what's going on, because I think that'll be a little bit more, late. It don't need to be a documentary, but remake it to the point where you can actually get some Native American people in the writers' rooms, particularly the Powhatan tribesmen and tribeswomen, and have them make sure like be acceptable for not just children, but of all people of all ages, not to gloss over anything that's heavy, but don't make it too dark where like kids can't enjoy a movie depicting one of the most iconic Native American individuals in history. Uh, I think like a Disney remake of Pocahontas would probably be a little bit more palatable than Disney remake of The Lion King, which is not based in any historical context. It's just a circle of life story. Um, uh, the Pocahontas informs John Smith like your people looking for gold. We don't. It was kind of a funny moment. It's like he says like we're looking for gold, and she doesn't know what gold is, and he's like, oh, this is yellow stuff, and she pulls out like a big ear of corn. It's like, oh, here we go, here's gold, and it's like, I did get a chuckle out of that. It's like, it's like you said like you want something yellow. Here's something yellow. it was pretty funny. I gotta give it that. But he shows her a gold coin to point her in the right direction. And he's like, oh, she was like, yeah, we don't have none of that here. Because going to show that if there was any type of gold, I'm pretty sure like Hernan Cortez probably found what little that was in South America, even though it was pillaging the hell out of the Mayan people of what little they probably had. Which, by the way, one of the John's crew members points out. I think no, it was like Radcliffe's assistant. It was said it like a joke, but he makes like Radcliffe makes some kind of like statement or question like, who are these people to say like, and like his assistant who plays like a goofball. He doesn't really serve much to the overall narrative, but he just lays it out like, oh well, we came over here and like plundered their we came over here on their lands, plundered their stuff, and killed one of their people on our search for gold and blah blah blah. And like like it's all hand wavy, but it's like if there was, I don't know if Cinema Sins ever did like a sin video of Pocahontas, but I'm pretty sure he'll point out this guy will be amazing at Cinema Sins. This guy will be, because that's when I first thought like this guy will be amazing at Cinema Sins. He'll be historically accurate on Cinema Sins. But there was like a budding romance between John and Pocahontas. But of course, the Englishmen on their ignorance, believing like Native Americans are savages, and they trying to keep the gold to themselves, and they'll kind of attack us. And then you got like the Native American people who, rightly so, should like get these people off their freaking land by any means necessary. But Pocahontas trying to beseech or plead to her father, who's organizing this the other tribes chiefs together for like an all-out war against the white man, and she's pleading to him like, if one of them comes over to meet with you, would you actually talk with him? Would you like, if peace was possible, would you speak with one another? And he's like, yeah, sure, but we don't see how that would happen. And John's supposed to be the one, but Kakum, who is depicted like he's wrong about like trying to keep things English man away from Pocahontas, because all they know, these guys are the aggressors. They immediately start like firing weapons that hurt, because they don't understand what guns are. It's just like with the Mayan people didn't understand the conquistadors, musket firing. They just, this technology they don't have and don't understand. So John and Kakum get into a tussle. One of John's friends, voiced by Christian Bale, still can't believe Christian Bale was in this whole time, tries to help John, but in an ensuing scuffle, Kakum ends up getting killed. Then John gets captured and he's going to get executed at dawn. And thanks to Grandma's Willow's encouragement, Pocahontas goes, intervenes on John's behalf on the iconic shot where she goes between her father and John before he lays down like his weapon to take off John's head, right as like the Englishman was coming to like start laying waste to all of them. But in this touching moment, everybody lays down their weapons except Ratcliffe, who tries to take a shot at the chief. John, steps in front of the bullet, gets hit in the gut, which should, be usually getting shot in the gut at that time, way into like the Wild Wild West. That's usually like a fatal wound, no matter if normally it should be like a lifesaver today. It wasn't so much back then, but they managed to nurse him, and the English people tied up Ratcliffe to be facing charges. Like what charges? This guy, there's a lot of people in England who doesn't view the Native American people as people and thinking that they have their right to do whatever they want, to their lands, because they're like, we're white, so we're right kind of mentality. Pocahontas and John say goodbyes, and the movie ends. Now, here's the good parts that I really do love. The art in this, to this day, still phenomenal. I almost forgot how beautiful this movie looks. The art direction is great. The music is fantastic, albeit a few of them being very problematic, words. But even back then, it seems kind of effed up. But like the historical inaccuracies is just like I said, this, out of any Disney remakes, this one deserves one, just to try to get it as close to it as accurate as possible, so we can have like a better generation growing up understanding the real world life of Pocahontas better than the previous generations have, but also having everybody understand that the atrocities uh, uh, that befell the Powhatan people, and of course, like whitewashing the whole, because it wasn't until like it was always the case, but I think it didn't hit home for me and the people that I know around like early to mid 2000s when we really learned about the supposed uh, Native American people and English settlers come together for the world's first Thanksgiving, which was horse shit because they still commit atrocities and kill a lot of Native American people for their resources. And at the very least, that truth lasted a couple of days at the most, because trying to do something nice, because these people's gonna die because they don't know how to farm and grow stuff in like a different, you know, uh, country altogether. Uh, but yeah, I mean, like I said, uh, you know, the real life of Pocahontas is like, you can watch like a documentary. I'm pretty sure there's a documentary on it, but I it's somewhere in between like a documentary and like a you know kitty simplified variation of the history. It's got to be somewhere in the middle where a remake can like you know uh, put it simply so like a fourth grader can understand it, but not gloss over what really happened. But like, if you're gonna watch the documentary, if you want like the real story, where she this woman who has been despite everything kept her head up. Lord knows what she had to do to like keep her sanity throughout this whole mess, where she was essentially kidnapped, raped, took her to a whole brand new land, raised a child she was forced to carry, uh, but she still loved anyway. But uh, but she still managed to become like I said, like an icon. Uh, but man, it's rough, man, and it goes to show like the colonizers did some fuck shit. Uh, uh, and to continue to do so up to the point, I mean, to some extent, you still got like Karens to this day would be what colonizers were probably back then, but twice as evil. Uh, but man, like I said, at the very least, what the movie managed to do was highlight an important figure. At least Pocahontas has always been like a, a, a even though some people might use that as like a term of maybe not endearment. What's the opposite of endearment? Insult, I guess, to people of like Native American. Like if you meet like a Native American woman, you try to like if you were a complete ass, you probably in try to insult her, call like whatever Pocahontas, and kind of like because she's Native American, but that's what the movie did. It was like at the very least, he kind of like Pocahontas to Native American people would be like akin to Batman or Superman. It's just like you may not be a complete comic book nerd, but you are culturally like all around the world. People know the name Pocahontas. It's like I said, it's like you don't have to be a comic book fan to know who Superman is. You know who he is, and just like Pocahontas, you know Pocahontas. Maybe not the 100% historical history, but you know the name, and it hits home. I just wish that because I think you think Song itself needed like a little disclaimer. A lot of the Disney Renaissance films should probably have a disclaimer because they're probably is certain things as were or is insulting to a particular group. But then again, Walt Disney was supposedly a, you know, uh, maybe like a, I don't know, like a Nazi sympathizer, but he definitely has some kind of, prejudices. You know, uh, hey, Crystals, uh, like, the racist crows and Dumbo, for example. Uh, but yeah, and the Aristocats, the Siamese twin cats in Aristocats is completely racist. Uh, yeah, but like I said, we do better as time went on. We become more culturally aware and culturally sensitive. Some people say it's too sensitive, but sometimes better to be too sensitive than not sensitive at all. Is what I ascribe to. Uh, but anyway, let me know what you guys think of Disney's Pocahontas. I know some people still consider it as a cultural touchstone and still one of the best Disney Renaissance films, and it still is, in some aspects. I mean, this movie had a budget of $55 million and the box office $346.1 million, so it did something right. I mean, like, I won't say it's whitewashed, but it's just like the inaccuracies. They're trying to make a romantic kind of animated film. They wasn't making a documentary, so the onus is on the people to actually do their research. But you did kind of, fed a bit of lies to children growing up at the time, thinking like, oh, John Smith was like a okay guy. We really wasn't. Yeah, Pocahontas was fell in love with him. She probably didn't. So anyway, this Saturday I'll be doing I will start doing like throwing in a little bit of Christmas stuff within the month of November. I have to take a couple of things off the docket because it wasn't readily available to me. Like Charlie Brown Christmas and Thanksgiving I wanted to do reviews on, but I can't find it anywhere, and I'm not going to try to buy Apple or Paramount Plus, whichever one it was on. But freezing some time for me at the very least. But yeah, stay tuned. In a little bit, I will be doing like some reaction videos. So I will see you guys a little bit later.